Internet, my name is Ren. This is Ren Rants, a channel where I rant about many things that I care about with a particular focus on pop culture and politics. This video is going to be a spoiler-free review of The Haunting of Hill House, a 2018 Netflix original series directed by Mike Flanagan. This series is a gem. I'm just going to say that right up front. I think that it's probably one of the better Netflix original series I have seen in a long time in terms of consistent quality, and it really is just a stunning series to watch. So the general premise of the story is that the Crane family has moved into a fairly decrepit old mansion with the intent of restoring it and flipping it in order to purchase their forever house. So the family moves into the house and everything seems hunky-dory at first, and then strange things start happening. And it's very much a series in line with classic psychological horror, sort of where you don't know how much of it's really supernatural and how much of it is in the characters' own heads. And it's similar to movies like Oculus in that regard, so if you liked that kind of thing, I think that you'll really like this series. It is a beautifully done series, it has gorgeous cinematography, and while it occasionally has a little jump scare here and there, most of the scares that it relies on are just sort of intensely creepy and vaguely horrifying. There are a lot of little moments that are truly chilling. It does a pretty good integration of CGI, although sometimes it gets a little bit clumsy. But for the most part, the CGI effects are very well done and very memorable and lend to this general sense of creepiness and unease. And the series does do a fantastic job of sort of building a sense of apprehension the entire time that you're watching it. And I think that the slow and deliberate pacing, especially in the first few episodes, really does a good job of laying the groundwork for a poignant and honestly beautiful conclusion. I will say that the very last couple of episodes do feel a little bit rushed. I think that at first this is sort of mounting crescendo of things going on, right? Where it starts out at a very slow burn, and then the drama and the scares and the psychological sense, all of that intensifies. But it's at a very deliberate pace, the first few episodes, and I think that it's really effective. But the last couple of episodes, it definitely feels a little bit more forced and starts to go into cheesy ghost movie territory here and there. I think that the conclusion's fine, it's pretty good, and it definitely has some beautiful moments within it. But it was honestly pretty lacking overall in the grand scheme of the series when it started out just so perfectly paced. I was really impressed with the first few episodes, and the end of the series is by no means bad. It's very good. It's totally worth watching, and it is a satisfying conclusion. I just think that there could have been ways to maybe trim certain parts of it, focus on the parts of it that mattered a little bit more, and kind of bring those out of the shadows. Because there were definitely certain parts here and there where it just felt too rushed. If I were to compare it to a series, I would actually probably compare it to Sharp Objects. I think that was an HBO series. I really enjoyed that. It's based on the novel by Gillian Flynn. For that, I actually did read the book. I didn't read the book this is based on or see the original movie that was based on the book. So this is just an opinion of the show. But with Sharp Objects, I read the book and I saw the show, and it's very similar in that it's a series that focuses on adult characters kind of going back and finding the roots of something traumatic and horrifying in their childhood, and so there's a lot of splintering between past and present that is done really effectively, and I think adds a lot of dimension to the characters, and again really helps with that sort of deliberate pacing of the plot where they give you just enough information. And I really love that it's a show that kind of respects the audience. It definitely builds things where there are lots of little clues where you could probably figure out the plot yourself if you knew what to look for. But here and there, it really does kind of come out of left field and surprise you, and it gives you that wonderful, oh, moment where it all clicks and it all comes together. So I would say it's definitely worth a watch if you're a fan of psychological horror, if you enjoy series like Sharp Objects where it's a bit more of a slow burn. I would say there's not so much in the way of gore or, you know, like lots and lots of jump scares, if that's your thing. You know, there's some like unpleasant body horror here and there and some sickening moments. But it's definitely not something where the scary part of it is supposed to be how gory it is. There is much more where it's just a sense of not knowing whether characters are really seeing things or whether they're imagining things. And just the whole show creates this sense of discomfort that I think is really, really effective. And I think that's pretty similar to Sharp Objects, where there was just a good job of making the sense that everything was set up to be a particular way, but nothing was quite right. There's this sense of wrongness in basically every scene in Sharp Objects, and you get that here too, where every scene there just feels like there's something a little bit off, and sometimes you can put your finger on it because it's like an explicit, horrifying monster in the background, and sometimes you can't, and there's just this sense that something is wrong. And those scenes are almost scarier, where you're not sure where the ghost is or where you're not sure what you're looking for, because it just creates that sense that something's wrong and you don't know what. This is the kind of series that you probably should not watch home alone in the dark. I personally live in an old house, not quite the size of the one in the movie, but probably about as old, and we have like nice creaky floors and an actual terrifying murder attic. So, you know, that's great after watching this series. It's totally awesome. I'm not terrified to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. What creaky stair monster? Luckily, we do have a bunch of cats in my house, so we just like attribute any mysterious sounds to the cats. And I have a couple of roommates, so that's also something I can just attribute any mysterious sounds to. So if you live alone, and if you live in an old house, don't watch this at night. Don't watch this while you're home alone. It will creep you out unless you're some kind of person with nerves of steel, in which case I hate you, because I do not have that. I don't, like, get scared in the sense that I believe that what happens in the movie is going to happen. I just get scared in the irrational sense that when I think about it, my lizard brain gets nervous when I'm alone in the dark. You know, this is the kind of series where when you finish it, you might walk a little bit faster between your car and the house if you get home after dark. You know, it's that kind of a series where it leaves you feeling a little bit tense and nervous for a couple of days, because that sense of apprehension is just so well done. If you're not affected that way by horror movies, you know, in some ways I envy you, but in other ways I feel sorry for you, because it's kind of fun to have that full experience where you actually get a little bit scared. So I think that whenever I get a movie or a horror series that does that for me, I'm really pleased. I'm personally not a big fan of American Horror Story. I just never could get into it, even though I really like horror. And so this show seems kind of, you know, similar in that it's just a fun horror-based series. It has a lot of interesting horror tropes, but the way that it's presented is very, very well done. The cinematography is beautiful. Here and there, the writing is really beautiful. The characters are touching and sympathetic. And even though they're all deeply, deeply flawed, you also really understand why, because you get a front row seat to see what they're going through. So I definitely recommend this series. I would rate it like an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. I think there's very little they could do to improve on what is already so good. My only criticism really is that I think they should trim the fat in the conclusion and kind of focus on some of the bigger parts. I think the child acting was amazing in this. I think the acting of the adult characters was graceful and well performed. And I was just pretty blown away by it. I binged it all in a couple of days, and then I rewatched it again to look at all the little things that I had missed. And some parts of this are really just almost enchanting, and other parts are just absolutely horrifying. So give this series a watch. Let me know what you thought. If you like The Haunting of Hill House, or if you like my videos, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. See you next time. Wiedersehen.